Hi everyone, this is Joy for Honeybee Stamps. For my project today, I used the No Line coloring ink with some beautiful images from the Just Because stamp set. Now I'm actually starting with my background. We're going to do a lot of layers on this background. So I have a piece of white cardstock cut to an A2 size piece, and I'm using the Honey Dipper background stencil, and I have that taped in place. I'm going to be using some Distress Oxide inks, Wild Honey and Fossilized Amber. And I'm just going to start with the the Fossilized Amber, and I'm just laying some of that ink down. I'm going to come in with the Wild Honey, and I'm going to go a little bit darker with this. I want there to be a little bit of a difference. Not that you're going to see a whole lot of this background by the time we're done, but I really did want to use two different colors for this. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of that Wild Honey, and I'm just going to go around the edges just a little bit. Some darker in some corners, a little bit lighter on the sides. Now I've got some Distress Oxide sprays. I'm going to use Antique Linen, Spiced Marmalade, and a little bit of the Salvaged Patina on this. So this first color is the Antique Linen. Here is the Spiced Marmalade, and I'm very light-handed. One spray with that. I just want a few of those darker spots. And I'm just going to take my heat gun to dry that before I bring in my next color. I'm using the new Salvaged Patina, and I'm just doing a couple spots in the corners and just a couple light spritz in the center. And then I'm going to take my heat gun to this again until it's dry. Now I did trim this down 1/4 inch around all sides, and I'm taking the Salvaged Patina Distress Oxide ink and I'm running that along the edges and just a little bit on some of the corners at the bottom just to give it more of a interest to the background. Now here is the No Line coloring ink. This is the new ink from Honeybee Stamps, and I'm stamping up my images from the Just Because stamp set. And you can't really see, you can see a little bit on film, but it's a really light ink. So I'm coming in with some Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and we're going to be coloring this cute honey pot and that little honey stick and some of the honey drips. So the colors that I'm using for this, I kept it pretty simple. For the honey itself, I'm using light brown and yellow. What I like about the light brown is when you thin it out with the water, when you start blending it out with the water, it has more of a darker honey kind of look. If you've ever been honey tasting or anything like that, there's lots of different colors of honey. And so I wanted to keep it lighter in the center with the yellow and then darker on the edges. So I'm using those two colors together. And then on my work surface, I rubbed the Zig marker on there and just added some water and was blending that out a little bit more. So now I've got a good blend for my honey. I am coming in with light blue because I want this to look like a glass jar. Something I noticed about this No Line coloring ink is even if I didn't color with my Zig markers directly onto the ink, it kind of grabbed it and made a little bit of a darker edge, and I really, really liked that. So as you can see here, I am just blending out this light blue, darker on the edges, very light in the center. I don't want the whole thing to be like a blue jar. I just want the idea that this is a glass jar. I'm going to color my honey stick. I'm just using that same light brown, and I'm just adding darker spots to the edges and then just blending it out with some water. I'm using a water brush pen, but I use it more like a paintbrush. I don't fill mine with water. I just dip mine in water from my work surface. But as you can see, that's coming together nicely once I get all of that blended out. So for the lid of the honey jar, I'm still using that same light blue, making it look like glass. I'm just adding some of that ink to the sides and really just blending it out. Super simple and super easy. But you can see again how that ink grabs the color, which really gives you a nice defined edge. Now I'm using the same light brown and yellow for the drips of honey. I'm just coming in very light-handed with that light brown, kind of blending it a little bit with the yellow, and then coming in with the water on my paintbrush to really get a nice blend. And I think it turned out really great. I'm going to finish out those little drops of honey, and then I'm going to come in and color some of these flowers. This wasn't my original plan, but I felt like I needed a little pop of color for this whole design because I didn't need it to just be yellow with a little bit of turquoise. So I'm using the light blue for this flower. I brought in light carmine and emerald green for the pink flower and the leaf. I used all the coordinating dies to cut them out, and now I'm going to put this little honey jar together. I'm gluing on those cute little honey drips. I did place my background panel onto a white A2 size card base, and you can see it has a little white frame around the edge. I'm going to use some of that liquid glue to adhere my honey pot down, and I'm going to use some foam tape for the lid because that looks like it's a little bit closer. And then I'm going to come in with the flowers and the leaves and just kind of add those around, and it really softens up this whole design, makes it so much more pretty than it originally was going to be if I had just had the honey pot and that cute little honey dipper. So I'm going to adhere that down with some foam tape. I have some foam tape behind my little honey dipper stick here, and that's also going to have some honey dripping off of it, which I thought is really cute. It almost gives like an action to this card, even though this is a really sweet and pretty card. I'm going to finish gluing down these flowers. I'm gluing that blue flower directly to the stick and then the rest of them on the back panel. Now the sentiment that I used is going to say, "You are sweet as honey," and that is from the Just Because stamp set, and I did stamp that with the Salvaged Patina ink, and I did use the coordinating die for that. I love that about honeybee stamps, that their sentiments have coordinating dies. So half of this is going to have some foam tape behind it, and the other half it just has liquid glue because it will be adhered to that flower, and I'm just applying that up at the top. And now this has a really nice flow to this whole design. I decided to come in and use some Nuvo crystal drops in Simply White and just add a few of those towards the top. They're not super in your face, but it just added just a little bit more of a detail to the top of this card. Once I'm done with that, this card is completely finished. Really, it was a super easy card to make, and look at how beautiful it is. That background is just so much fun. You can still see some of the stencil work, but it has all this extra detail, and then those beautiful images that use the no line coloring ink turned out beautiful. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I will see you soon. Bye.